off and try again. You can dust it off and try again, try again. 'Cause if at first you don't succeed, you can dust it off and try again. Dust yourself off and try again, try again.
Peace and blessings, brothers and sisters. There has been outrage and an onslaught of criticism through social media over the biopic of the legendary princess of R&B singer Aaliyah. And as a fan of hers, the criticism was warranted, as the casting and the storylines in the film were just horrible. But while the black community was so outraged over Wendy Williams in a Lifetime produced film, where is the outrage against Hollywood motion pictures for their historical portrayal of using white actors and actresses to whitewash African history? Better yet, why isn't the black community holding accountable black independent filmmakers that are in a position to cast accurate portrayals of our history? Or will we even support black filmmakers that are willing to present our history the right way? Let us deal with Hollywood first. Actually, we shouldn't expect much from Hollywood, since this is obviously their mission. We can document this fact with several examples. Just recently, motion pictures released in Son of God, the Bible, Noah, and just released Exodus, the God of Kings. And we can go back further to movies like The Mummy, Ten Commandments, Cleopatra, Solomon and Sheba. All these films cast all white actors and actresses, which it is overwhelming evidence that ancient Israelites and Egyptians were medium to dark-skinned people from the regions of Africa. My favorite examples are as follows. In the Bible in the Old Testament, the book of Exodus chapter 4 shows the prophet and leader of the Israelite people, Moses, reluctant in spite of the God of Israel's assurance that he would use Moses to lead his people to liberation. So the God of Israel wanted to prove in a miraculous sign of Moses placing his hand in his cloak, and his hand came out as white as snow. Now, if this is a miraculous sign, his skin had to be medium to dark skin and drastic difference enough to be viewed as something supernatural. So in essence, the Israelites were a dark-skinned people. And we see how the Egyptians painted themselves from reddish brown to black with African features. Christ is described in both the Old and New Testament as hair like wool and skin like burning brass. So with this evidence alone, and the geographical location, the casting of all these films I mentioned are historically inaccurate. So we should ask ourselves collectively, if the color of these ancient people doesn't matter, then why not portray them with the historic accuracy it warrants? This goes to the importance of image making. It is clear through science, religion, academia, and media. These are institutions that taught not only African people, but the rest of the world that we have no culture, civilizations of significance, and contributed very little to the world. This in turn helps create low self-esteem and self-hatred among Africans and disrespect from others worldwide of our humanity. That is why we constantly find ourselves defending our history and humanity all the time. But isn't it ironic, with all the erroneous portrayals of African people in their own history in motion pictures, that movies dealing with slavery and blacks depending on white support like Django, The Butler, The Help, 12 Years a Slave, 42, and The Blind Side, and countless others, have accurate portrayals of our people? Brother Malcolm believed that the science of imagery is Western imperialism's strongest weapon. Dr. Amos Wilson said of entertainment, it is one of the best ways to inculcate cultural values. Steve Biko once said, the adoption of black theater and drama is one such important innovation that we need to develop and encourage. We should know by now that Hollywood or any mainstream cinema or motion picture is not going to portray African history accurately. Now, this does not mean just to sit idle and not call them out for their casting when we detect this, but had the same directed energy we had at the casting of Aaliyah's biopic, against Hollywood's distortions of our history because that has a true agenda and affects all Africans in some way, shape, or form. We must keep things also in this proper context as Hollywood has a history of racist and stereotypical films and whitewashing our history. And we should call them out just like the Jews do with their Anti-Defamation League. Once we can understand that we cannot depend on others to portray our history the right way, then we look to our very own black independent filmmakers that are established and those that are up and coming. Let's deal with the more established black independent filmmakers in John Singleton, Spike Lee, Oprah Winfrey, and Tyler Perry, who need to take up responsibility instead of the typical black films that they normally do because that is what sells for a profit. At some point, morals have to compensate for what sells. The four I mentioned have some levels of consciousness to their work, but not nearly enough, and what we need to counter this onslaught of distortions. We have to find ways to balance pure entertainment, events in history, folklore, and the inspiration of films and do it constructively rather than destructively. Because, like I said, entertainment is not mere entertainment. There are several instances where people hold a stereotypical view by what they see and hear in our entertainment and entertainment in general, and they identify that with our culture. The other issue we have to address is the fact that when we have these filmmakers that are willing to make things happen like this, we have to support them, brothers and sisters. Spike Lee, when he was trying to produce Malcolm X, needed funding and got that support from the black community. We have examples of some of our entertainers trying to use film to portray our history in a positive light. In Danny Glover with the Haitian Revolution. The United States actor Danny Glover planned to do a film on the Haitian Revolution and exemplify the hero Toussaint L'Ouverture. And he said he had to work hard to try to even raise funds for the movie because financiers complained that there were no white heroes. He said, the producer said, it's a nice project, a great project, but where are the white heroes? I couldn't get the money here. I couldn't get the money in Britain. I went to everybody. You won't believe the number of producers based in Europe and in the States that I went to. United States actor Blair Underwood in 1992 did a film called The Second Coming. As he said, it was not intended to give a literal story of the Bible, but to make points. First, that Jesus was a person of color. Second is that if Jesus were to come back to earth today, he would probably be treated as lowly as he was back then. So in this, Blair was trying to make contemporary interpretations of the Bible, but he portrayed Jesus and the cast in its proper context and accuracy. It had been reported that the History Channel is capitalizing on America's renewed interest in Black history by partnering with Halle Berry to produce a miniseries about Hannibal Barca, known as the Brilliant Military Strategist. Hannibal is most famous for the Second Punic War, when in 218 BC he marched an army including elephants from Iberia over the Alps and into Italy, occupying the country for 15 years. Hannibal was not only the greatest African general to ever live, he may have been the greatest general, period, Halle Berry said. His story is an intricate and captivating ride, and I'm thrilled to get this project off the ground with our partners at History. And let's not forget Michael Jackson's powerful cultural expression in his musical short film of Remember the Time on the Dangerous album, portraying correctly the ancient Egyptians. We need to expand the work of Michael Jackson as he did in that short film with a complete cinema with historical events. The purpose of this is to point out that there is an agenda and mission going on in Hollywood and mainstream cinema that we have to counter with our own creative genius. If you don't think the inaccurate casting of Hollywood is important, then you have to ask yourself, why don't they portray African history the right way outside of slavery, misery, oppression? So while there is a legitimate criticism of Aaliyah's biopic on Lifetime, let's use that same energy we use through social media and other outlets to criticize and expose Hollywood and mainstream productions of their inaccurate casting of our history. Quit economically supporting these films. Let's encourage and challenge our filmmakers to produce African historical facts and moments of victory in our history outside the movies of our enslavement, oppression, and stereotypical destructive entertainment. We have countless examples of victories in all aspects of our history and even folklore. This is our duty because our enemies use media entertainment outlets as a main source to make the world hate and disrespect an entire group of people. We listed documented examples of several of our figures in entertainment making attempts to present positive aspects of our history accurately. We have to support them and others that come along because entertainment is just not mere entertainment. Cultural expressions are tied to our entertainment and can be a very powerful tool in presenting ourselves to the world in a positive light. We also need to study the ancestor Eddie Robinson. One of his main visions was to present through cinema, drama infused with African folklore and historical events. This is to keep the audience entertained while learning some powerful aspects of our culture. And I leave us all with the wisdom of our elder Tom Burrell in his book Brainwashed. We must challenge Black Hollywood to step outside the parameters that keep us from seesawing between buffoonery and pathology. We must produce material that isn't destructive or chipping away at our self-esteem, but uplifting, constructive material in our entertainment that properly reflects our rich culture. Forward Africans forever, backwards never.